Hi, so today I want to talk about follow your bliss. I'm sure you've heard that expression, and if you're on the personal development bandwagon, there is absolutely no doubt you know it. And it's interesting to see what are the costs associated actually with following your bliss and doing what you love, or at least what you think you love. So my name is Peggy van der Plassche. Thank you for being here today. I've been thinking actually quite a bit about this common, follow your bliss idiom and how most of us have understood it and acted or not on it. And, it usually goes like this. You have an artistic passion, or maybe it's a sport, maybe it's entrepreneurship, something that, you're really passionate or at least interested in, something that you believe is your bliss. And you get really inspired by this follow the bliss philosophy. So you decide that you're going to make a career out of this passion, that this is going to be the way you're going to pay your bills. Sometimes this happens early in life, can be a kid, you can be a teenager, recent grad, can also happen to mid-level professionals. Maybe we call it a midlife crisis, identity crisis, but it happens at many points, many entry points in life. Sometimes it comes from an advice that's given, to you as a child or as a mentee. And usually to justify that choice of following your bliss, you're given several examples of people who have done. So successful artists might be, writers, painters, any type of artist, can be soccer players, can be content creators, entrepreneurs. Anyway, you're going to get a lot of example on people who bet on themselves early in life, sometimes later in life, and they followed their bliss to tremendous success and supposedly happiness as well. So you get very energized by these examples. You decide that now you're going to focus full time on your passion, poetry. And I mean, after all, how difficult can it be to make a living out of pottery? You have social media, there is Etsy, you can work from home. I mean, how difficult really can it be to make a solid income from your passion? And visibly, everyone is doing it. If you look at social media, everyone is making a seven-figure with their online course or whatever is it they're doing, just living the dream. And then usually troubles, follow shortly after. Whether studies of corporate jobs are abandoned or not started, savings are dipped into, usually all of the above. I mean, the upheaval has started. So in the first part of the process, you're excited and you make a lot of wrong decisions, naively following your blissful path. Wrong allocation of capital, wrong allocation of time, wrong allocation of energy. Usually that's, the summary of the mistakes that are made in this first step. After a while, probably not so long, you start wondering, what is it that you are doing wrong? Because you should be well on your way to success by now, and you're not. You have followed all the social media trainings, you're a master at pottery, you have launched your own online course and community, you have diversified your portfolio of activities as recommended by the gurus of the new economy. You even have registered for a mastermind for potters. Maybe you are not visualizing your success well enough. Maybe you're sending the wrong messages to the universe. Yeah. Can't really put your finger on it, but something it's not working. Tremendous inputs, tremendous efforts, tremendous investments, very limited outputs, and anything to show for. And your bank account is not giving very encouraging signs either. So you're very confused. Really, you don't get it. Others seem to have it totally under control. You look at their social media, their Instagrams, their this, their that, they're talking, da da da. So what's happening now? Confusion and frustration settle in. Finally, that freaking pottery sucks and now you're in debt or you have severely dipped into your retirement or education savings. So you wonder what went wrong. You did follow your bliss, or is it that it is not working? So let's talk a bit more about what went wrong. So the idea of this newsletter really came from, my own experience, my own observations, my own reflections, but also the discussion I had a few days ago with one of my girlfriends from France. And she was telling me about her little girl who's 8 years old, and how that little girl, she loves anything artistic. She loves to dance, she loves to recite poetry, she loves to, learn plays and do some type of children's theater. So she's really artsy. And as my girlfriend explained me that, and my girlfriend, which is my high school girlfriend, but we did the same business school actually in France. And then she started going on that rant, kind of, that follow your bliss type of mantra, saying that anyway, if her daughter loves dancing, she will find a way to make a living out of it. And to give a bit of context, my girlfriend burnt out from her corporate job last year, and she's been following like multiple courses since then, poetry, hypnosis, and so on. And she's trying to find her own bliss. So there might be some projections on her daughter right now. But this is the exact moment things can go terribly wrong. The idea that follow your bliss means it is an easy path, success is guaranteed, but also, I think the most challenging, the fact that your bliss needs to be your full-time career and what pays your bill. Again, that little girl loves dancing, great. Why does she have to become a dancer all suddenly? So I would say there is so much to say about this, like freelancer portfolio of activities. That is, it became crazy now. And that comes with that follow your bliss approach. You need to do 25 things in the same area that your bliss. And the main thing is people are not sustaining themselves financially. And I think it's important to say it is not sustainable. And it's not just because it takes time and investments to see traction, but because most of these businesses are not viable in the first place. It's just math, And maybe, yes, some people, I don't know, maybe they're more talented, maybe they're more hardworking, maybe they get in at the right time, maybe they're less ethical, I don't know. But yes, some people have been able to be successful at this particular endeavor, but this is rare. And, I would still want to see the reality behind that. Show me your financials. You tell me you're successful, show me your financials. Show me your hourly rate, actually. But also show me your genealogy tree. And that's something we tend to overlook. So I was reading a magazine, W, a couple of days ago, and the article was about 9 emerging models, musicians, and actors who are carving out their own niche, okay? So anyway, I'm glancing through nice pictures, and I start reading a bit the vignettes, and something recurring kind of caught my eye, and it was literally their ancestry, because from Sting to Nicole Kidman to Luc Besson, more than half of this emerging talent that was showcased were actually the sons and daughters of very successful and powerful people in their field. So yes, of course, if your mom is Nicole Kidman, or if your dad is Sting, you should absolutely follow your bliss. That makes total sense. It doesn't matter for you anyway. So, but for my friend and her daughter, well, that's a very different approach, So if you are curious as well, I read a great book. If you're curious about this topic of becoming an artist and living out of it, following your bliss, which I think is actually true for any endeavor, not just being an artist, actually. I recommend this great book called Good Artists, and it's written by a British collective called The White Pube. And yes, it's a play on the white cube, the art gallery, and this idea that everything needs to be white to showcase the art, you know. And the book is very interesting because it recounts in a very dramatized way the path of an artist that is graduating from art school and their hero journey to become an artist. And I would say my main takeaways from this book, which actually are very similar from what I've seen, what I've experienced, is first, you need to already be wealthy to be a successful artist. And when I say artist, again, you know, fill in the blank. You also don't have to be a full-time artist to be an artist. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't mean that this is your career. It doesn't mean that this is what financially sustain you. I think that's a very important point here. It's probably the main point I want to make. It doesn't have to be the activity that sustains you, your bliss, your passion. The third thing as well was also the size, again, of the student loan. So one of the writers, she went to that very prestigious art school in London that's called the Central St. Martin's. And she left, when she graduated, she had $140,000 of Canadian dollar of student debt, equivalent in pound. And I mean, it's impossible. There are not many field of activities where, okay, you recover from that debt quickly, at least. But as a beginner artist income, which is probably kind of zero, I mean, it's just an unsustainable value proposition. And that's also mathematically not possible, which always brings me back to this idea that you need to have already money to be able to do this endeavor. Maybe your parents are paying for your studies, your parents are paying for your studio, the material, and then, yeah, maybe you have luxury to be able to become a full-time artist. But otherwise, I mean, that's pretty impossible if you need to pay your student loans and sustain yourself financially. I mean, that's I don't see how mathematically you can do that. And so the book really went on to explain things that I knew, but I never really thought of. You know, of course, the artist is going to have to pay, you know, let's say the artist is a painter, going to have to pay for their canvas, their materials, the studio, you know, everything that comes into the preparation of their art. But also they would have to cover the exhibition costs because most young artists, and not so young actually, don't have galleries representing them. And so every marketing related expenses for them to show their art, they have to support that. And when you're represented by a gallery, 30 to 50% of the listing price is going to the gallery. You know, these guys also need to pay their bill. And, you know, this idea that artists can make a living selling directly on social media or, you know, any Etsy or whatever stuff, it's not true. People don't make, you know, that type of money to sustain themselves via social media. And that's the challenge that everyone pretends it does, but it doesn't actually. Very few people can do that. And the ones who can, again, maybe they were lucky, maybe it was great timing, maybe they were, you know, more talented, and maybe they lie as well. But I don't think the majority of people putting their stuff in line can actually make a living of that. Usually they have other activities on the side. So, and that really reminded me very much of my experience as an author, where unless you're already successful, you pick up most of the costs and actually you're sharing the profits. So that is how the cookie crumbles, let's put it that way. So the big challenge, again, with the follow your bliss approach is that your passion, on top of that, very quickly becomes less exciting when now it has to be your main source of income and you have to produce, you know? And it's not just the pressure, it's also the fact that you're very dependent on, you know, the whims of the buyers when you're lucky to have buyers, you know, whether your gallerist, who, as I say, also need to pay his rent, request a certain size of pieces because at this price point, they're going to be able to move the inventory. Whether you have, you're lucky to have a sponsorship, but then the client is like, I want that type of color, I want that type of theme, this is the piece I want. So you have a lot of constraint. I mean, the creative process is very curtailed, So, and it's the same if you're a musician, if you're a writer, if you're an actor, like you don't, you're more an order taker than anything else. So suddenly, it's less exciting to do your poetry or whatever your passion is. And again, same if it's a sport, same if it's freelancing or starting a company. And the other part of the equation that we don't talk enough about is the opportunity cost. What didn't you learn? What didn't you earn? What didn't you do as you were pursuing this passion of yours full time as a main career and a main source of income? And I mean, the calculation can very quickly lead to a tremendous monetary amounts, but also tremendous amount of regrets, let's be honest. So whether you're a young adult that was channeled into the wrong studies to align with your passion, whether you were a recent grad that was channeled into the wrong career, again, following your bliss, whether you're a mid-career professionals who decide, guess what, I'm leaving corporate to go into entrepreneurship, so I'm going to be my own boss and do what I want and follow my passion, da 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 da. I mean, these choices can end up being very, very costly, and not just financially. And I mean, of course, again, there will always be people for whom it worked out, but this extrapolation of a very tiny sample forgets that these very successful people who followed their bliss are the rare exceptions, not the rule. Of course, we all want, and we all think that we are the exception. We all think we're above average driver, above average fashionable, and so on. But I mean, the reality, well, an average is an average. So the people as well who've been very successful, what we tend to forget is that they also have made tremendous sacrifices, and they took tremendous degrees of risk to get where they are, plus obviously, as always, timing and luck. So again, as demonstrated as well in that W article I was mentioning, you might not know the strong start they started with. You have no idea, is there family money, is there family connection, is there anything that actually put them where they are and that you don't see, which is a very important piece of the puzzle. So again, I want to put the emphasis on social media success. Most of it is an illusion, like having followers, having visibility has very little to do with financial reality, let's be honest. So I was chatting with one of my friends recently who's done that, the corporate to entrepreneurial shift a few years ago, and then went gladly back to corporate maybe 2-3 years ago. And she couldn't take it anymore, the mundanity of the daily tasks as an entrepreneur. And that's also the challenge for people who have been already working maybe for large organizations in jobs that were, intellectually challenging, maybe more senior, to find this level of intellectual stimulation and this level of impact in an early stage venture is very challenging. Like a lot of the work is quite mundane. Because if you're solo or in a very, very small team, like it means you're doing everything, like you're picking the color of that Instagram post, you're doing your taxes, you're booking the client's meetings, you're selling, you're executing. I mean, you're doing literally everything. And maybe you're thinking it is different if you start a tech startup, but I would say not really, actually. Like most of these companies also go belly up after tremendous of effort and tremendous of follow your bliss. Well, the difference is that they might have raised capital from external investors, but many of these entrepreneurs, they took a lot of personal debt, often remortgaging their house, if not selling it, to get their business off the ground. So, I would say it's very difficult to run two parallel realities at the same time, but even those who have companies that might still be operating 10 years after, I'm not sure they didn't leave a lot of money if they had not just followed the corporate route, starting a tech company, following the corporate route. Of course, everyone is thinking about Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos, but they're free guys, like most of the tech entrepreneurs, whether they go belly up after putting their life savings on the line, whether they barely survive. I mean, that's the reality if you look at the probabilities, So, and I mean, last but not least, these endeavors, artists, content creators, I don't know, soccer players, entrepreneurs, this is very lonely and competitive. You really need to have a very strong, supportive network and community around you in order to keep that sense of connection and also to keep learning, because if you're on your own, it's not necessarily easy to keep learning and growing. So it's very easy to become quite isolated when you follow your bliss. So what is the bottom line that I'm trying to convey here? And it is not about becoming an accountant, from a place of fear of the future, but it's about being realistic with how economics work. Most follow your bliss endeavors are not economically viable, especially when you weigh in the success failure probabilities. And at the end of the day, you still need to pay your rent at some point, And okay, if you're blessed with generational wealth, then doesn't apply to you, follow your bliss, good for you. But most people, well, they are not in that situation. So again, find a career you enjoy enough and be an artist, an entrepreneur, a soccer player during the weekends, during the vacations, after work, like the kids have tons of after-school programs. So why would it be different for adults? Do the same, enjoy what you love after business hours. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. That's a topic I feel very strongly about because I read so much crap that I think is unfortunately leading people astray. So thank you so much for watching. Please don't hesitate to comment, like, subscribe, whatever you're supposed to do. And see you soon. Take care. Bye.